Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 77. I am your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we are excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed illustrator, Kamila Król. She's here to talk to us about her latest Kickstarter project, Rusalka. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
All right. A mythical woman with strange powers and a dark secret. Discover this dreamlike folktale inspired by Slavic mythology. Kamila, thank you for coming.
Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. I went on, and I discovered your Kickstarter and completely was blown away by the style of it. And
oh, thank you.
And congratulations. And we'll talk about in a little bit. You actually are now funded.
Yeah, it is. It's still going, but it's funded.
You got 27 days left as of this recording, and you still are. It's impressive to see that you're already hitting stretch goals. So congratulations to that.
It's been crazy. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
So talk to us about before we jump right into it and start talking about this. For some of the folks who are kind of interested in wanting to learn more about your artwork and your style,
yeah,
do you give people a bit of a background of how you got into your illustration?
Sure. So I mean, I've always been sort of that kid who liked drawing all the time and reading comics and stuff. So there's no sort of very exciting story with it. But I think it's probably being into comics and sort of being into art books and things like that got me into illustration as well. So it's like I've always loved drawing and painting, but I never thought sort of where I can apply this kind of work. And then when I was in high school and I discovered that graphic novels are a thing, I just thought this is something that I'd like to do, and I think this is how it started pretty much. But then when I was 20, I ended up leaving Poland because I'm Polish, I should have said. So I left Poland and I came to Cardiff, Wales, where I'm still almost 7 years now. That's the story. And yeah. Okay.
And I wanted to kind of show the folks on here your work. I am incredibly awed by some of the styles that you do on this. And you work specifically, as you say, you before we went live, you say you kind of do a little bit of I don't analog, I don't know if that's the word, but
yeah,
you do art by hand, but you also did do some digital work. So talk to us a bit about that. How do you do your style?
Yeah, sure. I think sort of doing like the art education, I've tried like a little bit of everything, like different techniques just to see what works for me, sort of like trial and error. But what I really love is like ink drawing and ink and brush and all the brush pens. So it's like really dynamic line. So that's what I'm usually using, and then adding colors in Photoshop. But recently, and especially for more of the comics work, I've been working fully digitally, and that's been also really fun to just like experiment with different effects and brushes. So I guess it kind of depends on the projects and how I feel as well. Sort of jump between fully digital and analog techniques.
Now, so talk to us a bit about the. So do you use when you do digital work? Are you using like Photoshop, Procreate? How are you doing this?
It's all Photoshop.
Oh wow!
So so these ones, the ones on the screen now, they are the traditional drawing with the like, ink brush pen. I think it's the Pentel brush pen. It's really cool. It's kind of like if I could just keep one art tool forever, I would keep that brush pen probably. And then I just scan it in, and then it goes into Photoshop, and and everything else is done in Photoshop. I like sort of playing with the colors of the line as well, and with different textures on some drawings as well. Okay,
so you draw it out, pen and paper, and then you scan it in, and then Photoshop it.
Yeah, and especially with the newer work, I'm trying to not just do flat color, I sort of play with different textures and brushes, which is still something that I think I'm experimenting with, and sort of trying out different things. But I like the mixture. I think I like the mixture of traditional and digital all together.
And so as you talk about with experimentation and trying new things, what have you noticed what have you there's something that you've noticed recently that you've tried to experiment with that you say, all right, this is going to be in my tool set, this is something I'm going to be using all the time now, I like what I did here?
Yeah, I think the textures, playing with textures in Photoshop, which I think I've sort of tried to like find, or I guess like here, like the little like grainy textures. I've been using loads of different brushes and sort of constantly being not satisfied with the effect, and then something just finally clicked. So I guess like repetition is key in this case. Yeah. Yeah, I think I really enjoy when a digital image still has that traditional feel to it a little bit, a bit of graininess, and a sort of I don't like it perfect, if that makes sense. I like when there's a bit of wonky line, a bit of imperfection. I think it just makes it a bit more alive.
And so talk to us a bit about as well your passion for character design. Now, how did that get about?
Yeah, yeah, it's strange. I don't know sort of if there's any explanation to it. I'm just really drawn to drawing people. I'm really drawn to strange characters. I like playing with different shapes and making them slightly exaggerated and stylized, and sort of seeing how can I convey like a certain personality within just like one character drawing. And that's something that I've been practicing for a long time now, I think. And these characters are from my Slavic mythology art book. So that was a really fun series when I was doing a bit of Slavic mythology research and then sort of reimagining different creatures for myself and thinking about like different symbols that they can have. And that's I think 16 of these characters that I've created. It was last autumn. That was really fun to work on.
No, and so when you put this together, so you said, you at the top of the hour, you went to Cardiff to go to art school, correct?
Yeah.
Now, and that was you said about 7 years or so ago?
Yeah, in 2014.
Okay, wow. Isn't it amazing 2014 was 7 years ago?
I know. It's a very weird thought. What is time?
Now, let me ask you, so how much, so for those that might be thinking about, this is the time of year people might be applying for art school.
Yeah.
Would you still say the fact that now in this day and age, you can pretty much learn everything online? Is there still importance on going to art school as compared to what you could probably just learn on your own right now?
Yeah, it's really important to think about, I think, personally, and sort of from talking to different people and to different artists, because people have very different experiences with art school, and I think it does depend on, I guess, what do you need and what you're expecting as well. So I don't think it's necessary to study an art course to then enter the industry. For me personally, it really helped, and I think for me it was a great opportunity because sort of the amount of resources and the whole community around, for example, my illustration course, that was something that I don't think I would really have the experience anywhere else. And also I think an experience like studying in a different country, it's in itself like a bit of an adventure, and I would really recommend it. I think like it's sort of, you just can't really get it anywhere else. So but I think that there are a lot of different ways now to sort of gain the skills and like the amount of sort of workshops and courses. So I guess just sort of it's important to choose what suits you. Yeah.
So what did you find that talking about your your Kickstarter. Let's pull that up right now.
Yeah.
Talking about your Kickstarter, what, like I said, you've already hit, it probably shows up as a different, as a different amount converted. Okay. So you probably see it in pounds probably. Do you see, so when people that are looking at trying to do Kickstarters, and what do you, and this is the first Kickstarter you did, and it's funded in 3 hours. So what would you gauge that success on? Is it the fact that is it a social media presence you had in the beginning? Is the fact that you've done some work? How did you get people to come to your Kickstarter?
I would say that it's really important to really give yourself a lot of time before the actual launch to prepare everything and sort of like put little seeds in different places in the internet. So different groups, different communities. I think a social media presence definitely helps as well. But I think, at least from what I've seen, it's almost like the time before launching the Kickstarter. It's this crucial time, even more probably than just after launching, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, and not being afraid of telling people about it, even if sometimes I feel like it feels almost overt when we have to sort of promote something, especially as artists, we have to promote something online, but it's definitely worth it, I think, because there's just so much information online right now that you sort of have to have that repetition and sort of try to talk to different people about it. So I'd say definitely build it up before the actual launch. And I think also what I thought about while sort of designing this and planning this is so it's visually consistent throughout, so it's quite clear when it comes to language, and thinking about sort of attractive rewards that people can't get anywhere else. I guess all of these elements are like equally important.
And what were some of the things that you've, because you're not a stranger to Kickstarter, you've backed Kickstarters in the past. What were some of the things when you're planning this out? What was the planning period? If your recommendation for someone who's looking at launching one of their projects on Kickstarter, doing a comic on Kickstarter, should they plan 2 months ahead, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year? What would be your feedback? What would be your advice for them?
Trying to think how long I planned, because I think I started gathering ideas for it quite early. So I think I'm a big fan of like writing things down and making lists and things like that. But I think at least a month beforehand. And I would definitely recommend, if it's a comic or a zine or some kind of publication, to have majority of your like art material ready before the Kickstarter happens as well, so there's no sort of stress with deadlines. So it was probably around a month of planning this and doing a little bit of research and asking different people about advice.
And what did you see is some of the things you've seen in previous Kickstarters where maybe you had a notepad and you're like, I got to do that. I'm got to do that one. That's a great idea. What were some of the things that you said, I need to make sure I have this in my own Kickstarter? What was some of those items or things?
I remember I really enjoyed seeing how different artists come up with visuals for the whole campaign. So not just showing samples of your artwork, but things like, how are you going to frame your stretch goals? Are you going to do some like custom lettering? Or people do, for example, when they have some like unique rewards, they do images for these rewards only. And I think if this is all consistent, that really makes it look more professional and contributes to that. So that definitely is what I was noticing. I think I really enjoyed as well, because I've backed quite a few Kickstarters before. I like how people post a lot of updates, and it's sort of like, I guess it's almost like you get a bit of community around the campaign, and you get responses from people, and you just like stay in communication.
Right. Because I can see that what you're mentioning earlier here. You have like some of the frames that you're talking about. I think it's further like here, the goal, stretch goals, like how that you created that. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, I wanted it all to like have the same colors as the actual comic has, so it's all like one thing.
And I do notice in your artwork, in your style, are you are you making your own fonts on some of this? Like, is this your own?
Yeah, it's all the handwriting with ink or digital.
Okay. Did you create your own font like for this, or did you draw you wrote all these out digitally?
It was just hand drawn.
Oh
I
wow.
probably should have tried to create a font, and that's probably something for the future. Yeah, it's all just sort of hand drawn on a tablet in Photoshop, just sort of keeping similar lettering.
Okay. Okay. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So talk to us
Um,
about this now. It's about your Kickstarter. What can people expect to kind of give people a synopsis of what the story is?
Yeah, so this comic is my debut comic, sort of like the longest thing I've done so far. But it's a part one of a bit of a longer story. And yeah, so as you can see, it's inspired by Slavic mythology. It's focusing around Rusalka, and she is a water demon from Slavic folklore. I guess she's kind of a like the Slavic siren. There's some similar traits. So she's like,
Okay.
she has magical powers. She can like sing beautifully. She hangs out like around the lake as well. And in the old legends, she's like death threat. So she sort of waits for people who are lost in the woods, and then she drowns them. So that's the belief. But when I was working on this, and I was researching her as a character, I realized that she has a very sad origin story, and I sort of don't want to give too many spoilers, but I thought it would be interesting to focus on the character, and instead of just showing her in the same way that she's always portrayed, to give her a bit of more of a storyline and think about what she might be feeling, and that is how this story began. So it's about her trying to discover her memories, and I guess discover her identity as a demon as well.
And so it is. I think it's 36 pages, right?
Yeah.
All right. And if you make a stretch goal, you're going to add an extra 4 pages, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
That's it.
Okay. And is that something that's already been written out that you kind of already have created, or?
Yeah. This first part is pretty much finished, and then there is also the script to extend that story sort of in the future to maybe part 2 or a bigger book.
Right. Now, I was kind of curious to ask you about this, about your artwork. There's a level of kind of this 1950s vintage color plate feel to some of your artwork as well. Do you have your color palette is amazing. Is that something that you kind of honed on your own, or is that something that you learned in art school about making sure that everything, as the color wheel goes, you keep all you like either cool colors, warm color? How did you come up with putting together your palette for this?
I think with coming up with a palette, there's just a lot of experimentation and trying things out. But what you said about sort of the mid-century feel to it, I've been looking at a lot of old prints and old postcards, and even things like old Soviet postcards and the way that the paper texture is visible on it. So I was trying to have this nostalgic look to this comic, and I guess all the greens, so they can be associated with like being underwater or maybe being in the forest. That was the idea for it.
And so, yeah, so I kind of see when I look at it, when you do a close up, and the image doesn't do it justice, but you do have kind of a pattern, like a filter or an overlay almost, to make it feel as though there's this vintage feel to the story.
Yeah, that's it. So there's the set textures that I use throughout this comic that I think contribute to that nostalgic feel.
Okay.
And I really enjoy that effect. But I don't actually do it in a lot of my other work. I think I just wanted something very consistent and quite like a limited color palette for this story.
Right. And do you have, looking at some of your other work here, and you've done, as you mentioned, some editorials. So you've done some publications and illustrations for some publications.
A little bit, yeah. I've been collaborating with some Polish magazines and some online magazines as well, and it's a lot of illustrating for. I really enjoy illustrating for like lifestyle articles or ones that talk about like psychology, body image, these kind of topics.
Mm.
So slightly straying away from the folklore there.
Now, getting back to the Kickstarter, so where did you find like the textures and stuff? It's like if there's an artist that might be watching says, hey, I do digital art, where can I find some of these textures?
The actual textures.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really recommend scanning things in general. Okay. Like sometimes I had bits of like old paper or like crumpled paper that I thought, oh, that might be interesting. Sort of scan it in good resolution. You can experiment with that. You can change things like levels or curves in Photoshop and have really interesting effects. But also there's sometimes you can just get sort of licensed but free texture packs somewhere that actually hit the spot. And again, just trying things out. I think that's the way to go.
And I love the fact that you have one of your stretch goals is a Polish version of. Do you have? Is all of these comics? Or is there going to be in different? Are you going to have it in a Polish language, or is it all in English?
It's going to be in Polish, actually. I'm in the process of translating it now, which is also quite interesting. Because I haven't, I guess, translated my own work before. But yeah, I'm very happy that it's going to be printed in Poland as well. I was lucky enough to talk to some sort of like comics groups in Poland, and I'm collaborating with someone there to have this printed and have it stocked in Poland as well.
So from the translation aspect of things, is there any aspects of the story which seems to be either, told in a richer way in English or in Polish, depending on how the translation works?
Yeah, I think some of the expressions or some of the descriptions, I can see I need to tweak them because if I translate them literally, they're just not going to have the same, I guess, emotion or just the same atmosphere. So that's a really interesting experience trying to like just get this right as well. Yeah, so there is a bit of a difference.
Okay.
But because I wrote it in English to start with, so it's almost like I am translating this now to my first language. So the other way around, it happens. Yeah.
Do you have? So you already have. Do you have other stretch goals kind of in mind, just in case you? I mean, when you hit your next one, or?
Actually, at the moment, I think this is what's planned. I guess there are 27 days left, so we will see where this takes us and if there's anything else. But I like the idea of adding like little bits of merchandise, things like the sticker sheet. I also have the art print and the bookmark, which I just designed specifically for this Kickstarter. So I think if there are any other stretch goals, I'm just going to be making similar things.
Right. So talk to us a little bit about designing the comic. Now, you said you worked in Photoshop. Do you then have to do you format it in Photoshop, or do you format it like in Design or on any other publishing program?
I think to prepare it for print, this is going to be in Design. Okay. But at the moment, it's been all Photoshop. And when I worked on the script, that was Photoshop as well. So I've been doing just loads of digital thumbnails and just thinking about different compositions and how the layout of the page sort of might work. And I guess working digitally there is quite useful because with digital, you can sort of fix and move things around very quickly.
Okay.
So that works very well.
So you said this was your first go at creating like a long form, graphic novel. Yeah. How did you? I'm really curious to kind of talk to us about your process. Did you actually end up sketching things out? Did you have like a list of ideas, or did you write like an actual script? How did you go from? How did you create the end product as a creative? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been all of these things because I've been working on this story for a really long time. It's one of these things that the idea for it came to me maybe like 3 years ago, and then I had few attempts of trying to turn it into a bigger story. And it only happened this year, so I had different sketches and notes, sort of both like notebooks filled in with notes and different thumbnails, like just done with pencil. And then this year, when I felt like, yes, I have more structured material, that I can sort of just try to make it in a more organized way. And then I moved everything digitally. But I had just a script that was just written, just text, and then different thumbnails to work out the pages. So I need both text and image, I think, when I plan things out.
Okay. And did you already, like, when you write you read out, did you have like, so and so said, like almost like a play script, or did like some sort of like a script of like you would read in like a play, or did you kind of have an idea of what they were going to say in advance, or did you just kind of type it right out as it went? How'd that work?
I think I typed it. I think sort of in my head, I try to imagine this story like it's an animated film.
Okay.
So I think when I was writing the script, which was just text, it's sort of like a bit of description of what happens in every panel, and then obviously the speech bubbles sort of in different fonts, so I can like visually distinguish it. But it's not a terribly organized script, I have to admit, because because it was just for me. So I think it's been a bit chaotic, but it's very descriptive. So I know what kind of atmosphere or emotion I want from every panel. Yeah.
And do you have, so when you put this together and you launched the Kickstarter, how did you kind of plan out the costs of things? Because obviously you have to add in, the price of like shipping and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
How did you create that? Yeah.
There's yeah. Oh, it's tricky. And sorry, my headphone just decided.
Oh.
Yeah, it's I think there's a lot of hidden costs as well, but it's writing everything out. So it's the whole cost of production, which is not only printing, but it's things like getting the ISBN number, because with the ISBN, then obviously the book can be stocked in shops and things like that. There's things like the costs of postage and packaging, so everything can be packaged safely. And then the whole cost of the all the merch that goes with the project as well. So I think it's good to think about any possible cost, like even the smallest ones, to work out like a budget that's safe. Yeah.
So talk to us a bit about your tiers now. So you have your pledge, that the US $2 tier, the £1 pledge. I haven't seen this before. This is interesting, where it's just basically like a mini digital reward.
Yeah.
Token
of appreciation.
Yeah, it's what's interesting. I've seen a lot of Kickstarters will say, here's, for one, for £1 pound or $1 dollar, here's it's a thank you. We'll decide you to, but I love the fact that, I mean, really no cost because it's digital, is that you have digital wallpapers for that.
Yeah, I think everybody should get something. And and I thought that might be interesting to just have like a little thing, like, even if it's just a wallpaper.
Yeah.
And then there's a bigger digital reward, which is the PDF version of the comic in both languages as well.
Right. And and you also get the digital wallpaper for that too. So, okay.
Yeah.
And then what's the Waterlily tier here?
That's the art print, which is the illustration done for the Kickstarter. And that'll be printed on A4, I think. But then, so sort of art print only. But then there's also Kickstarter introduced this new function, which is add-ons. Right. So you can also have sort of like little items that can be added to rewards. So I think I try to make like loads of different rewards on very different levels. So then it's comfortable for whoever wants to support to just pick something that fits them. Okay.
And then you have, this is kind of like your main one here. This is like your comic book one right here.
Yeah.
This level. And
And
this
then
is, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I just the comic, and then it comes with like the bookmark and the stickers and all the little fun stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. And a handwritten thank you card too. Look at that.
Oh yeah.
So you would get, basically this is 2 copies of the comic, one in Polish and one in English, right? Or you pick?
You pick the language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
There is a possibility to sort of add another one later on as well, but yeah, because I have some backers that are based in Poland, and they might prefer to sort of wait for the Polish version, so there will be an option to choose.
Okay. And so, and then this one is, it's the same. Oh, this is just in Polish.
Just in Polish, yeah. This has been added sort of after we reached the first goal.
Right. Okay, I see. Forest Guardian tier. So this is the retailer reward. So this is where you get, you get 7 copies of it.
Yeah, with the sort of perks like saving on the retail prices a little bit.
Okay. All right. And you would still get the bookmark and
stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So something for everyone, I guess.
And is this the kick? Oh, so this is a Kickstarter exclusive illustration.
Yeah, that's it.
You mentioned. Okay. And this, so I'm really curious. So did you draw this? That, as you said earlier, you usually draw and then scan. Is this all digital, or you drew this out and then?
Yeah, this one's fully digital.
Okay, all right.
Actually, with I guess it has quite heavy texturing, so it probably has like a bit of the feel of like an old print, or at least that was what I was aiming for.
Right. And is that something but when you scan these, so another piece of advice to give to artists, when you opened this up and you started working on this thing, did you do it at like 300 DPI or did you do it higher?
I usually go for 400.
Okay.
So the 300 DPI is recommended for print, but I'd say for the safety, and especially if you want to work on smaller details and close-ups, then going 400 or even 600 is probably ideal.
For like making like a poster print size.
Yeah, for like A4 and more. If it's just for the screens, then I guess it doesn't matter as much. But then again, if you want to work on more detailed elements, then having higher resolution is always better. Okay.
And I'm just kind of curious to see what you had for I can't look at add-ons. That's too bad. I don't have it. There's any other add-ons that you have on here that we haven't seen yet? So you have your bookmark, comic book.
The add-ons are things like my previous zines. So I have the Slavic mythology art book that can be added to a reward.
Okay.
Basically, I guess the things that you can see in the folklore bundle. Yeah. So these are just my other projects that are also linked to Slavic folklore, but not directly to this story. So
let's talk about some world building pieces to this. So you mentioned this is it's inspired by Slavic mythology. So it's not, you're not just taking the characters and just writing them as it. So you're kind of putting your own twist on it. Is that what you meant by inspired?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there more? Because I just saw you on here. You had a Baba Yaga T-shirt as an add-on.
I do like Baba Yaga.
From a Western, Baba Yaga seems to be the most popular. Like when you talk about Slavic mythology, that's the one where she rides around in like in her hut with chicken legs, right?
Yeah, and eats children.
Yeah,
that happens. I think she's in loads of like pop culture media at the moment as well. Yeah.
And do you see? Is your idea now that as you see this is successful? Is there going to be? Are you looking at creating creating a Rusalka part 2, or are you going to do a different book with like a different character inspired by Slavic mythology? What's your plan? What's your long-term game on this? This is exciting.
There's a lot of plans, but yeah, I would love to create the second part of Rusalka, especially that, as I said, I already have a good idea of the script for it, so I'd like it to be a bigger thing. But actually, speaking of Baba Yaga, I also have an idea for a longer story, possibly a graphic novel, and that will be focused on Baba Yaga and is based on a Russian legend called Vasilisa the Wise. It's very fun. So yes, I'm hoping to be working with, I guess, adapting all of these old folk tales and adapting them for like a modern audience and having like a bit of a twist for them.
Right. And it's are there going to be mutually exclusive stories, or are there going to be are they going to interact at all, or how does
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
I think at the moment they're separate stories, but they definitely will have some mutual elements, just because they are sort of heavily based on these specific legends, and yeah. So I think there'll be some common elements to them.
Yeah. And do you have and so like when you're doing a different so will Rusalka be the same color palette, or are you gonna change it a bit, or and then have your other characters have different color palettes? How is that? What do you envision that looking like?
I think I see Rusalka with this color palette. I think
Okay.
in my head as well, this sort of like underwater foresty colors are just what I associate with that story. But I think for the other projects, I generally really like playing with different color and different color combinations.
Right.
So I think I couldn't just sort of stick to one palette for a very long time.
Right.
So I have different things.
Right. And do you see yourself, moving forward? What would be some of the this is kind of a hard question, because you had your Kickstarter is being very successful. So the question is, what would you wish that you did starting to make it even more successful? Was there anything that you wanted to do with your Kickstarter that you say, it's too late now, I ran out of time, but I wanted to do this or that, or anything like that?
With this specific one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a bit of a tough question, actually. I think that because it's quite a short story at the moment, it's a bit tricky to do upgrades. Like, I've seen a lot of artists who publish graphic novels through Kickstarter. You can sort of upgrade the book in loads of different ways. So I think at the moment, if we reach that last goal, I'll be thinking about the separate additional items that I can add to the book, or maybe a few extra pages as well. But I think that's what I'm planning at the moment.
Okay.
And then for the maybe next projects, I'll try to make it bigger if that's possible.
So who would you say the audience is for this? Is it for children, or is it for young adults, or what would you?
I think young adults is probably,
yeah,
that's probably the best way. And yeah, but I guess just anyone who's into like dark fantasy or folklore and mythology. I think this is quite a like dreamlike and magical story with like strongly built atmosphere as well. So anyone who enjoys the kind of thing.
Right. So talk to us a bit about what would be some advice that you would also give for folks who are looking to kind of create a long form comic like this. What would be some advice that you would give people?
I'd say don't be afraid to take your time and sort of think things through and try things out. I think with setting for creating a bigger story, it's really important to pick the topic that you either really care about or just makes you really excited and feel passionate about it. Because, well, I'm still quite new to comics, and what I have discovered is that it really takes so much more work than you would think, I guess. So I think if it's something that you're really passionate about, then that's super important. And yeah, for me, it really helped taking notes and planning out elements of the world. And even though it's a short story, sort of imagining it as a part of a bigger world, it makes it seem more real, even if it's just for you while you're creating it.
And what do you say? So where do you see the best, I don't know, it's like community response that you've seen? Is it through Twitter? Is it through Instagram? Is it through where have you seen like your best when it came to starting to promote this?
Mm.
Where's your community mostly coming from, do you think?
I think Instagram is my main platform at the moment, and I had a really lovely response, and people were really connecting with it, which was great. But also, surprisingly, the comics Facebook groups, there's some really great places there. So I had a really amazing response from the Polish comics community, sort of way more enthusiastic than I even anticipated at the beginnings. I really
wow.
appreciate that. Yeah, it's been really great.
So you see a lot of it. So, and that's interesting. So I can't go any further on that. And so that would be kind of the recommendations, kind of find your family in a way, find the people that you kind of connect with the most and help with that. And
yeah, I think so, because at least for me, I think that's I guess the most genuine, because you have a group of people and you're sort of passionate about the same medium or the same topic. And yeah, I think that's the part of it that I enjoyed the most, is actually talking to people and talking to other artists about their work and connecting on that level. I think that's really important.
And where do you see also is, some advice on looking at some passive income aspects of things? Because I do see you also have an Etsy page. So
I do.
How much of a setup would this be for someone that's looking at trying to get some other income coming in?
I think it works really well, and if you can sort of hit the niche as well with your work, that can work very, very well. But it does take a bit of self-promoting, I guess, as everything does. And I would recommend the Etsy as a platform as well, because they have their own search engine, so you can really get completely new people coming to your work through that.
Okay. Oh wow. And what have you seen also is that mostly your prints or stickers or patches? What do you seem to be that people seem to gravitate more towards?
The Slavic mythology art book is by far, I think, people are drawn to it the most.
Okay.
I'm actually planning to release some more prints over the next month, but yeah, I think print sales and stickers as well. I think people like sort of little things as well, like stickers and patches.
Yeah. That's really cool. So I'm trying to look at. So this is good. So you've hit your goal. It's so exciting to see that. And where can people, if people are interested in learning more about your work, where can they find you?
So through my website, if you like, there's links to all my social media, but I'm on Instagram as a pigeon X person, and on Twitter as your little pigeon. There's all different versions of the pigeon. But I'd say if you'd like to check out my work, I'm mostly hanging out on Instagram.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Kamila, aka Pigeon, for coming on the show. This has been great. And
thanks, it's been great.
Yeah, and congratulations again on reaching your goal. And I'm really excited to see how far this goes. This is good stuff.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
You're welcome. Okay, cool. And are you in your kind of your studio right now? Is that where you're in right now?
I got a home workspace, but yeah.
Okay, cool. And I like it because the shirt you're wearing too kind of matches some of your pattern designs. It's
oh really?
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm right. One with my drawings, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You just
it's the way to live.
Encompassed by your style. Yeah. That's right.
Why not?